channel and press the bell icon to never miss a video update from Udan Academy. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified. An answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we are going to analyze the Hindu dated as a 20th May 2020. Display on the screen is the list of topics that we are discussed today. Timestamping for the same is provided in description below. Let's begin our analysis. First article is about the behind the incident a change dynamic along India-China border. This is the Indo-China relation, Indo-China dispute border. We are highlighted on the India-China border dispute. Indian and Chinese troops have been involved in as many as 4 incidents in recent weeks along the undefined LAC, line of actual control. The flagship primarily occurred in Galwan Valley in the western sector and Demchok in Ladakh. We have seen this Demchok in Ladakh in the map given below. So, China shares a boundary with 20 states settled border dispute: Myanmar, Nepal, North Korea, Mongolia, Pakistan, and Laos. Okay, as seen in diagram. Okay, India-China boundary dispute. Our India shares a 3,488 long boundary with China along the states of Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, as shown in figure. Now we are discussing about the history of boundary formation. British India had failed to produce a single integrated and well-defined northern boundary separating the Indian subcontinent from Xinjiang and Tibet. Therefore, India-China border is differentiated into 3 sectors: western sector, middle sector, and eastern sector. So we discuss now on western sector. Western sector is known as the Aksai Chin Center. The 2 sides differ over the boundary line that separates Jammu Kashmir from Xinjiang. That is a Xinjiang province. Okay. That is a Xinjiang province. This is the western sector. The 2 sides differ over the boundary line that separates Jammu and Kashmir from Xinjiang province of China. And India accuses China of illegally occupying Aksai Chin. This is the Aksai Chin area. This area is a Aksai Chin. Okay. India accuses China of illegally occupying Aksai Chin and some other parts of Ladakh region. According to China, Aksai Chin is the extension of Tibet Plateau, whereas India claims it as an extension of Ladakh Plateau. The region is mostly uninhabited. Aksai Chin is important for China as it connects the 2 backward provinces of China, that is Tibet and Xinjiang. In the historical context, western sector is more blurred because of the fluid approach British adopted it was guided by their own geopolitical interest to check the Russian advance in the Xinjiang region at the time, rather than the requirement of native states. The British themselves were not clear in that sometimes they advocated for the northern Kashmiri's border in the form of Johnson Line, where Aksai Chin was a part of Kashmir, and another time when they advocated McDonald Line, under which Aksai Chin falls under Xinjiang province of China. As a result, the disagreement prevails with India claiming Johnson Line to be correct and China claiming McDonald Line to be correct. In the official map of India in 1950, India marked east of Karakoram range. This is the Karakoram range. Okay, east of our India, there is a Karakoram range as a boundary undefined. Currently, though the LAC at present separates India and China in the absence of a mutually agreed boundary, there is a difference in perception about the alignment of the line. Now let us discuss eastern sector. Eastern sector are also known as a McMahon Line. In the eastern sector, the boundary was delineated in the 1914 Shimla Conference of British India, China and Tibet. Accordingly, the British proposed the formation of outer Tibet bordering India and inner Tibet bordering China. A boundary demarcating Tibet region of China and northeast frontier areas of India, currently Arunachal Pradesh, was agreed upon by British and Tibetan representative, which came to be called as a McMahon Line. This is another contentious issue because China does not recognize that McMahon Line as it was signed between British and Tibet, which was not a sovereign state at that time. As a result, China claims Arunachal Pradesh, especially Tawang, as a part of Tibet. India, on its part, while recognized Chinese sovereignty over Tibet, it McMahon Line to be official boundary. Next one is the middle sector. It is called as a settled sector. That is a middle sector with Nepal. It is the least controversial. It is the least controversial of the 3 sectors. Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand await the boundary. Both sides do not have much disagreement over this area. It is the only one where India and China have exchanged maps on which they broadly agree. This is the part of middle sector, India with Nepal. Now let us discuss about causes of problem in terms of Indo-China border dispute. First is difficult terrain, nascent survey technology. Okay, difficult survey or nascent survey technology. boundary are laid out in the 18th and 19th century. At the same time, this particular region of India and China is also home to Himalayan region, and hence is very difficult terrain to conduct any kind of survey. Now when this border is settled, 18th, 19th and 20th century, survey technology is available was of very nascent, which could not take that kind of challenge because of difficult terrain. Second problem is the absence of functioning Tibetan state. In context of in 1914, the Anglo-Tibetan Shimla Conference, British authority draw McMahon line. This particular line established a boundary between British India and Tibet. Now it is important to know that the Chinese representatives were present at Shimla Conference. However, they refused to sign or recognize this accord on the basis of Tibet was under Chinese jurisdiction, and therefore Tibet could not enter into any kind of treaty. And third problem is craft of British imperial map making writ large. Now we are talking about kind of changes in map making in British India. British adopted especially finding the border of India, there is a lot of ambiguity. There is some problem as well, especially in Aksai Chin region. Now this region was defined by British at one point of time as part of Jammu and Kashmir, and when they were looking any kind of invasion from Russian Empire, they defined this particular region part of Xinjiang. You can see here this is a part of Xinjiang. So British policy in terms of defining boundary is not very consistent. At one point of time, they decide that particular region is a part of Jammu and Kashmir, and at the same time when they suited their interest in India, then they define particular area as part of China, and this is the kind of problem British is given to India. Now most important aspect in entire journey is the most post independent development. Now here again fact are talking about India became independent in 1947, and China also started their journey of independence in almost at similar time 1949. As soon as China became independent, it basically invaded Tibet, and in 1950 China declared Tibet as a part of China. Now in the early part, that is in 1950 to 1954, India asked China to maintain independence of Tibet. However, situation changed drastically in 1954 in the India-China Agreement on Trade and Interaction between Tibet region of China and India was signed. As evident from this, India is accepted that Tibet is a part of China in 1954, and in turn China will stop claiming Arunachal Pradesh is a part of China. This particular agreement signed by Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Chinese Prime Minister Zhang Liu. Nehru imagine there is a trade-off between Tibet and Indian border. At the same time, Chinese perspective, there was no trade-off, real or imaginary, and Chinese positions steadfastly remain that India's recognition Chinese sovereignty over Tibet. China accepted former colonial McMahon line was not connected. Now let us discuss about the India, China and Bhutan border. The Sino-Bhutan dispute is almost a non-entity to China. However, by virtue of this key feature of its geography, Bhutan is of a vital strategic importance to both China and India. Bhutan is a landlocked country. There is no pass through any river or no pass through any land. Okay, Bhutan controls a number of Himalayan passes. Bhutan is a strategic buffer for the Siliguri corridor, okay, as shown in diagram. Okay, the reason for the stalemate is essentially the strategic implication for India and Bhutan of accepting China's package deal settlement, which consists of a territorial exchange rather than a traditional sectoral approach to border resolution. In essence, the exchange would involve China trading 495 square kilometer of territory in the central Bhutan border area in return for 249 square kilometer of territory in northwestern Bhutan. The latter is where the territories of India, Bhutan and China intersect in an area called as a Doklam Plateau adjacent to the Jambi Valley. Okay, as shown in diagram. This is the Doklam Plateau. Okay. This is the Doklam belt. Now let us discuss next article. Next article is hotter oceans spawn super cyclone. The storm system in the Bay of Bengal, Amphan, developed into a super cyclone on Monday and is expected to make a landfall along the West Bengal, Bangladesh coast today. According to the Indian Meteorological Department, various aspects related to nomenclature of cyclone have been discussed yesterday. In this discussion, we are going to dwell into what could be the possible reason behind the increasing frequency of cyclone in Indian Ocean. An IMD notification tells about it is very likely to move. It is very likely to move northeastwards across northwest Bay of Bengal and cross West Bengal, Bangladesh coast between Digha in West Bengal and Hatia Island in Bangladesh, close to Sundarbans during afternoon to evening hours of today, the 20th May 2020, with a maximum sustained wind speed of 155 to 165 km per hour, gusting to 185 km per hour. It is really true that frequency of cyclones is increasing. Yes, if you see in diagram, if you see in this diagram, you saw that three very severe cyclone storm. VSCS means what? VSCS means very severe cyclone diagram. S, severe cyclonic storm, extremely severe cyclonic storm. Got it? Means what? 3 VSCS as shown in figure, 2 ESCS and 1 super cyclone in last year. Okay, 1 super cyclone. This year, just before the beginning of monsoon, we have super cyclone, highest in the intensity of last 20 years. My question is, what is the causing the increased frequency of tropical cyclone in a Bay of Bengal? Answer that we will have go back to the basic. Just to revisit, cyclones are caused by the atmospheric disturbances around a low pressure area, distinguished by swift and often destructive air circulation. Cyclones are usually accompanied by violent storms and bad weather. So, what are the conditions which lead to the formation of cyclone? There are 6 main requirements for tropical cyclogenesis. First is sufficiently warm sea surface temperature. Okay. Second is atmospheric instability. Third is high humidity in the lower to middle level of the troposphere. And fourth is the enough Coriolis force to sustain a low pressure center. Fifth is a pre-existing low level focus or disturbances. Sixth is the low vertical wind shear. But keep in mind that these are just a necessary condition and not a sufficient. So you can see that temperature plays a big role in overall process. Let us see what has happened with cyclone in the bay. Cyclone gain their energy from the heat and moisture generated from warm ocean surfaces. As shown in a figure. As shown in figure. This is the temperature. This is cyclone gain their energy from the heat and moisture generated from a warm ocean surface. This is the warm ocean surfaces. As shown, red color is denotes that the warm ocean surfaces. The color towards a red denotes a T reaching 30 degree, temperature reaching 30 degree, and you can see increasing dominance of red color in the Bay of Bengal through last 5 decades. Higher than normal temperature in the Bay of Bengal may be wetting super cyclone and be locked down, and the lockdown indirectly may have played a role. What could be the reason behind the warming of Bay of Bengal? First is the long-term climate change, as can be seen in the graph. There is a long-term climate change. 1995 to 2005. Lockdown. For second point is lockdown. Reduced particulate matter emission during the lockdown mean fewer aerosol such as the black carbon that are known to reflect sunlight and heat away from the surface. Therefore, minimize albedo and lower albedo reducing their emission. So Heat is increased day by day. Every year, increased particulate pollution from the Indo-Gangetic plain is transported toward the Bay of Bengal, and this also influences the formation of clouds over the ocean. Now let us discuss next article. Next article is a callous response. The article highlights the apathy of central and state government towards workers in the informal sector, especially the migrant worker who has lost their job and is traveling back home on foot in the current economic crisis caused due to the novel coronavirus epidemic. And what is the problem? Now here are two sets of problem encountered by the migrant workers in the informal sector, who mostly comprise of construction workers, painters, delivery boys, cooks, cleaners and factory workers among other. Problem 1. Problem 1 is the epidemic has resulted in their loss of job and hence no source of livelihood. This is the more so for those workers living in mega urban cities like Mumbai and Delhi. Second problem, these migrants workers and laborers who do not have any source of income for their sustenance are traveling back to their home state in whatever ways are possible. Here the government has shown apathy towards their condition, especially for such migrants who are traveling hundreds of kilometers to reach their native place. Government at places are stopping them and even using a brute force against such feeble migrants who neither have source of income nor much food in their long march to their home. So this callousness of the government has revealed their inability or lack of it to cope with the immediate needs of the migrant population traveling back home, as they neither have a financial or logistical support from the government in times of such crisis. Social apathy and inhuman treatment for such migrants by the center. Indian national lockdown has definitely decreased the impact of disaster, which could have been much worse in a populous country like ours. However, social apathy still continues for workers and laborers. Despite fiscal relief provided by the central government, there is no collective. Okay, there is no collective protest response from the society at large and the central government. When labor laws in a few states such as Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and Punjab were relaxed against the interest and rights of workers, even there were tussle between the center and some states over the fare of train tickets for migrant workers so that they can travel home. In face of such financial crisis, such crisis, the center should not have charged train fares from these poor migrant workers. Migrants in Karnataka were treated more like cattle, especially when their train for home was cancelled. 16 migrants were crushed by train on the railway tracks as they were walking back home to Madhya Pradesh from Maharashtra due to loss of job. It was insult to injury when some migrant workers sitting on the roads were sprayed with disinfected by medical and fire department official in Bareilly in UP. Laws not enough to protect migrants. There are laws that are supposed to protect the rights of these workers, but laws such as the Interstate Migrant Workmen Regulation of Employment and Condition of Service Act 1979 and the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008 have proved to be an eyewash, as they hardly offer any protection to the dislocated workforce on the ground. Interstate Migrant Workmen Law of 1979 regulates the employment of interstate migrant workmen and provided for their condition of service. The 2008 law provides for the social security and welfare of unorganized workers. It constitutes national and state social security board, which all recommend to the central and respective state government suitable scheme for different section of unorganized workers. However, these laws have proved redundant for the migrant protection, as they form a large section of our society which cannot be neglected by our government. So what is the way forward? Way forward is that the migrants have faced and will continue to face apathy from the central and state government. The immediate problem are about the food security and logistic for them to travel to their native places. These workers are the backbone of the economy and must be treated like a humans with a compassion and not with the contempt. In the longer run, say 3 months, if these workers do not return back for work, then it will create another set of challenge for the state and central government, which they must understand and be prepared for. This is because these migrants workers consist of 10% of India's GDP and hence cannot be taken granted for, especially in times of rebuilding our economy after the epidemics. So here is a finish my lectures. So thank you everybody for watching my channel and watching my YouTube video.